Welcome, fans, to another edition of the Cheap Heat Productions Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling. And before we introduce our esteemed guest this evening, I'd like to welcome Maurice to his own show. Maurice, how are you, sir?
Absolutely fantastic, Jack. Thank you for the warm introduction to my show. But we've got a great guest here today now. A man that was a photographer for 21 and a half years with WWE, Mr. John Giamundo, if I pronounce that correctly. I'm assuming
you did. Most people get it wrong, or they'll call me Mr. John. You know how many times traveling around the United States, they wouldn't even try my last name. It was just Mr. John. I'm like, no problem. Well, my nickname at WWE was Johnny Photo. So, or Photo or JP, or I had a whole list of them. But a couple of guys came up with the Johnny Photo thing, and pretty much everybody called me that except for Vince. So almost got everybody. Almost got the whole company.
What did Vince call you?
Nothing. Hello. When he calls you by your name, you get nervous. You go, wait, how does he know my name? It's just too many people to remember. But somebody, I'm sure, fed it to him in a meeting. I'm like, oh boy. And we all said, once he calls you by your name, you get a little nervous. It means he knows you're not some random guy backstage. He knows who you are. But Vince wasn't. If you weren't a worker, you couldn't have a gimmick name. He was very against that. If you didn't get in the ring, you shouldn't have a nickname or a gimmick name.
That's interesting, John. Before we get into the heart of your lengthy career working for WWE, can you give the fans a little bit of a dissertation on your career pre-WWE?
I graduated college 1989, and I started working for a man called Bruce Bennett, based here on Long Island. I was born and raised here. He was, at the time, in January of 90, he was a team photographer for the New York Islanders, the Philadelphia Flyers. I grew up a huge hockey fan. I see him wearing a hat. And I think the year after he got the New York Rangers, I think it was in 91, 92, and then 95 was the Devils. So we were team photographer for 4 NHL teams in the New York, even that Philly's not the area, but, close enough. And, it was a dream job. Hockey fan, shooting hockey games, the Stanley Cup finals. You're in the Stanley Cup locker room. It was a dream come true. As a kid growing up, you're like, I'll probably end up working for my dad after 4 years of college. Am I going to get a job? And then we did a little bit of freelance work for WWF and Tom at the time. He would rent the photo strobes, the big flashes up in the catwalks when the shows came to Nassau Coliseum. And Bruce knew I was a wrestling fan, and it was go meet Tom, hand him the radio for the strobes, and just make sure they don't blow up. So back then, before the whole It's Entertainment thing came out, we had to meet him in the stands. There was no going anywhere backstage. Hand him the radio, went up into the catwalks, turned the lights on, sat in the press room, sat in the press box, and watched the show and made sure nothing happened, and turned all the lights off at the end. He gave me the radio, and that was it. At that time was when they were taping all the shows all over the place. There wasn't even Monday Night Raw back then. And then one other time, I think it was 96, they were looking for somebody so Tom didn't have to travel so much. And I shot a show ringside at Nassau. It was, a tape show. And I was pretty wild, to be ringside. It was the sunny days, the highlight of the sunny days. I think Ric Flair was there, and he liked the stuff. And I was like, we're going a different direction. All right, whatever, that's fine. And then Monday Night Raw came along, and I would shoot up at hard camera. He needed a third guy, and I was actually there at the show when they filled Vince's Corvette with cement. That was backstage at Nassau Coliseum, and some other crazy thing went on that they had me shooting, and I got yelled at. And I'm like, I don't know, just Tom told me to come in the back and shoot this. What do I know? So and then he called a coworker and said, hey, I'm looking for a staff photographer. We're opening up a second staff position, and this guy had just gotten married, so he didn't want to travel. And he quietly comes up to me, he's like, hey, just talk to Buchanan. I said, well, give him my number. Well, I'll talk to him. And we had a lengthy conversation. I went up for an interview. He said, send a cover letter, put my name in it so it gets pushed through the HR and you can get an interview. And we're going to put an ad in the New York Times next week. Now, this was Friday night. I was on the phone for about 45 minutes. that Sunday, they mistakenly deliver me the New York Times instead of the Daily News. And in the ads is a big ad with WWF looking for a photographer. I'm like, wait a minute. He said it was next week. This somehow shows up on my driveway, 8 days earlier than it was supposed to go out. And I didn't didn't subscribe to this newspaper. So that was very, very weird to me. And then the guys at work like, oh, you got to take that job. Let us help you put together a resume, a cover letter. And, like a month later, I took it. I was like, you know what? I'm single. I don't have any tie downs. I'll get on a plane. I don't care. It was, like you have a passport. You might be going to England and Jamaica within the next month. Excuse me? I'm going where? And got hired, and that was it. My first show was Monday Night Raw in Hartford, Connecticut. After, might have been Night of Champions. I forget the name of the pay-per-view, but Kurt Angle won the title, I think, for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't at the pay-per-view, but I did Monday Night Raw, and then SmackDown was at Nassau Coliseum. So it was like, well, I drive home, and then I don't have to do anything for the next 3 days. I'm getting paid. This is pretty cool, And then from there, with Jamaica was a diva shoot. I went for the last group of girls, which were Lita, Chyna, and Deborah. And then there was something happened with one of the TV producers. He kind of lost it, and he just went to the airport. And then they look at him, and they go, they look at me, and they, you have to go shoot one of the girls because the makeup artist is going to run to the airport to make sure he gets on the plane, and Tom's going to sit at the hotel. And there was no cell phones, so he had to sit in a hotel room. Like, I shot hockey for 10 years. I don't know what I'm doing. These girls were in bikinis. I never did this. Or here, look at the magazines. Look at the previous magazines. So, I was like Lita for a session, and then Deborah. And Deborah is the sweetest human being you'll ever meet in your life. And we kind of wander around. One of the writers, me and her, trying to figure out what to do. And I had this picture. We called it the Alamo shot because it looked like the front of the Alamo, this part of the resort. And they ended up making an 8x10 out of it. And she said she loved that shot. I'm like, cool. I don't even know what the hell I'm doing. And it made an 8x10, and she loves it. So, right on, And that was it. But I think the first year I shot ringside every show because we had a studio guy that would come out on pay-per-view. So that's all I did. Every pay-per-view, Raw and SmackDown, every week for a solid year, a little over a year before I did anything in the studio because that wasn't my strength. I was an action photographer for 10 years. So that trained me to pose the talent, work with the talent. I really talked to a lot of people. I just hung around backstage and went out to the ring, and I got friendly with the crew, obviously, because I was with them all the time. And then just took off from there after, Tom left, and I somehow ended up in charge and did more responsibility. So I never expected that. But that was good. It's a lot of fun. I mean, you're a kid, you watch it. I watched as a kid. I was at WrestleMania 2 at Nassau Coliseum. My brother and our friends. We would have WrestleMania parties. People would come over the house. And never thought of working for them. Never really dreamt about it. Like, guys want to be wrestlers because they saw Hogan. It just kind of happened. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was a great 21 and a half years. I mean, 45 countries on 5 continents. You can't complain about that.
So you mentioned before you were initiated into the company, your second go around, that they did a lot to protect the business or keep kayfabe. What was it that changed when you were an employee, and did you kind of have a I gotcha moment or something like that where it became clear what the business was? Do you remember that, or who smartened you up?
I was actually still doing the freelance thing when they went to the entertainment, because when they announced that it was entertainment, I still wasn't working for the company. And the next time they came through Nassau, I had an all access pass. And then they meet me backstage. I'm like, really? It said, walk in the back hallway, and there's, rest his soul, Owen Hart, and I had talking to somebody, and I was like, I'm trying to find Tom Buchanan, and I think at the time, I don't know if they were just starting to take the ratings over. I don't know the timeline of the ratings war and when WWF beat WCW for the first time in 83 weeks or whatever it was. But they had the ratings on the wall outside the production office. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Broken down by hour and demographic or whatever. And then I'm with Tom. He's looking at a magazine, and Luna comes over and it's just talking about how one of the magazines made her look uglier than she was. It was just one of those weird. You go, And she's talking to me. I'm like, I'm just some random guy with Tom. And she's having, why they make me look ugly? It's like I'm not attractive as it is. Why they make me look ugly? I'm like, you know, so. But at that point, yeah, it was already, they had announced it was entertainment before I started working for the company. But, you know, there were things I noticed when I started working for them that you saw people still tried to keep kayfabe. God, I think one time Trish was wearing a black wig because she wasn't supposed to be riding with somebody. And I'm like, was that Trish? Like, what was, you know, like, you know, she's keeping it alive. She's not supposed to be riding with this person, but they ride together. And now they don't like each other. So, you know, like, okay. You know.
The good old days.
Yeah. You know, like I tell people, you know, all the international tours, you have a heel bus and a babyface bus. And then we pull into a building at the same time. What? I don't understand. Does anybody see the ridiculousness of this? You should pull in like 5 minutes apart, maybe, not together, and everybody gets off. We all get off the bus, 2 buses together. But, you know, I don't know. Some people could see what was going on. Sometimes there were some buildings you go inside and nobody knows anything. And some you're out in an open parking lot and they're looking through the fence. But, you know, it is what it is, I guess. I don't know. You know, some things I would find odd as keeping kayfabe, but it's pretty obvious what you're doing. But the old school guys more than the newer guys would really try to keep kayfabe regardless of what was going on. I mean, Pat Patterson, I think, asked me for a year and a half who I was. And I was working as an employee, and I tell him every week, Pat, I'm one of the staff photographers. I work for Tom. And then finally we were on an international tour together, and I was sitting on the plane with him for however many hours. And then he finally then we had a nice conversation, and we were best friends. You know? Who are you? Pat, John, Giamundo, I'm the photographer. I work for Tom. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, you know, him, Michael Hayes.
John, I've got a question for you, John. Just Tom, when I was talking to Tom Buchanan on the podcast, he told me that some of the guys were a little bit off with him. For example, Andre didn't like him taking photos of him. Ultimate Warrior threatened to kill him, and that's pretty out there. But was there any wrestlers that were kind of standoffish with you?
I tell you, Ric Flair, now, not standoffish, great guy, had a lot of fun with him. He hated having his picture taken. It was just, I don't know if he was getting older, he didn't want to be photographed. But he told me when he was younger, he didn't like it either, even in the heyday. He didn't care if he was PWI Wrestler of the Year. He didn't want to pose for the photo. He just wasn't into it. And I don't know what WrestleMania was. It might be the last studio photos we took of him with the gold robe that I took. We shot, everybody was photographed for the WrestleMania program except for him. And we would hound him every week. And I'm like, look, Ric Flair, what am I going to do? It's Ric Flair. He doesn't want to come in. Well, I guess the office told Talent Relations. He claims he got fined. Well, he changes the amount of the fine every time we would see him. But, you know, he goes, I'll take you out drinking one night if you leave me alone for pictures. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll go out drinking with the Nature Boy, and I won't ask you to take pictures ever again. But, yeah, he says, this man had me fined $10,000. He changed the total every time we see him. He gave me the finger once with his wife. I'm like, really, Rick? How long have we known each other? Standoffish. Nobody was. Randy had his moments. Randy got better as time went on. He had his moments where he was nasty to you if you tweaked him, and it was just you asked him one too many times. And then we got friendly over time, and you know he would come in and do what we asked of him. But a lot of guys, once you got to know them better, and you're on tour, like Undertaker, I was definitely afraid of when I first started. I mean, I wouldn't even want to look at him, go anywhere near him. He was, you know, I started 2000, so think of the lineup back then. Steve was just coming back, Triple H, Taker, Rock, Mick Foley, Edge and Christian. I mean, even the mid to low carders were big names. And they were there for a long time. So you just had to kind of sit back and take it. The newer guys would come up. We had a little more power over them when stuff needed to get done. But, you know, Rick was standoffish in a good way. Randy had his moments. We would always call it the Randy Orton experience when he went off on you. That's what we would call it. we sent somebody in just so she would get tormented by him, and she came back horrified. We're like, I said, Randy, why'd you do that to her? He's like, dude, I'm telling you. And he was just sort of going off. And she's like, I'm never going near him again, ever again. Steve would give us the same line. I get the same bald head, the same goatee, the same angry expression. Why didn't he even take my picture again? Steve. He knew, and then he would come in. Taker would blow us off. He'd be like, I'll be there at 3 o'clock next week. And he would walk in at 3 o'clock, and you had to be ready to go. Because if he said he was coming in, he was coming in. But other than that, pretty much everybody – we're good. After a while, some guys get jaded or some get frustrated with their spot, and then they're not going to come in anymore. Some guys will come in with new gear because they knew the action figure money was good. And then I guess if they got a little frustrated that they weren't getting the push they deserved, they would stop coming in, blow you off, make up an excuse, walk past you with a smile on their face. And I was going to go stooge on them. They were busy. That was my line all the time. I was going to tell on him because that makes it worse.
We talked a little bit before we came on air about some of the experiences that you may have had with Vincent Kennedy McMahon, the chairman of the board. I've got a two-part question for you here. One being, could you describe your initial encounter with Mr. McMahon? And the second part being, do you have any notable stories that you experienced or were privy to during your tenure?
You know what? To be perfectly honest with you, when I first started, it was just he'd give a nod of the head, and a lot of times in the hallway, I'd usually just do a U-turn, so I don't have to walk past him. Why? I don't know. I mean, the guy's the boss. He's friendly enough. Sometimes he'll shake your hand. Sometimes he'll nod his head. Sometimes he'll walk in. They would never ignored you. I mean, he would give you a head nod or he would walk up and shake your hand. It was weird. A lot of people, they got 8 million things going on. My talent was the same way. Depends on what's going through their brain. Afraid to speak to him a lot of times. I got to talk to Vincent. I'm like, oh, do I really? I just, because he might hit you with a question that you can't possibly answer, and then he's going to get mad at you.
Mm-hmm.
We would do some photos with him in Stanford, and it usually canceled 2 or 3 times, and you'd be sitting around. I was like, yeah, he don't want to do it today. He doesn't feel like it. Okay. Go home. How are we going to do it next Friday? Sitting around, falling asleep. He comes walking in. Am I late? No, you're right on time. We've been waiting for 4 hours.
He's always on time.
Yeah, you blast AC/DC or BB King, and he's all right then. He loved AC/DC. Cranked AC/DC. He was a happy man. And BB King was another guy he was a big fan of. You played the music. He was changed. We had some meetings with him, and I think after Stephanie started, Shane had the first child, grandchild, and he'd go, sometimes it'd be Grandpa Vince or Mr. McMahon. I said, I like Grandpa Vince much better. I've seen him as Grandpa Vince, and it's a grandfather who loves his grandkids, and the way he would interact with the kids when they were back, during the day, it was, you go, oh wow, is that the same guy that just, F-bombed some guy on the headset? But he never raised his voice. And with us, it was just, with me personally, it was just like conversations. You could talk to him, if you had something to go back with him, he would think it over, do the eyes and give you an answer. He wanted to hear your opinions on things. He didn't just want from us. He would, we were in the way. The directors always complained we were in the way. It's like, well, how are we going to get the shot if we just stay 3 feet behind the cameraman? People like not seeing ropes. It makes you feel like you're part of the show, just like watching the cameraman. That ringside shot, you feel like you're in the ring, with the talent. And, you're getting pushed out, and the producer was always complaining, and the director was yelling at you on headset. And Vince really never cared about seeing us in the background. He liked seeing the photographers because it felt like a spectacle. The fans at home were watching on, wow, people covering this. This is like, like a football game or a Major League Baseball. It's primarily a television show. The company is a television production company. That's where they make all their money. Although we feel we're an important part of the process, where it's somewhere down the ladder. But we got a lot more. We got some more freedom as time went on, because we would talk to them, and we would push stuff where we'd have whoever we worked for at the time that spoke with him, and we'd relay it through him, and he would, oh, okay, yeah, sure, you guys could do that. He likes photos. He's a big fan of photography, and he loves a great action photo or a portrait or studio. He's big into photography.
So not directed against you, but you mentioned that he's F-bombed some people that you've experienced. Did you ever see any of that documented hellacious temper out of Vince directed at anybody else, not necessarily a talent, but whomever, office staff, whatever?
No, because if he ever got like that, I ran the other way. We couldn't. If he got loud, we could never hear him on headset. He was not on our channel. But if he was loud and not happy, it somehow bled through whoever was in Gorilla, and we'd hear it and we're like, "Oof, somebody's getting it right now." I hope it's not. Thank God it's not me. Anytime with us, if he was mad at something in the moment, and we went to his office after the show, very calm, and just have a conversation. And that was that. For us, the photographers, we none of us were ever yelled at or were victims of that, because it was always, there was a show going on. So if somebody got in the way or did something, he was mad at the moment, and then you go see him, and then he's calm and he's having a conversation like, "Why'd you do that?" "Well, we didn't. They rehearsed it a different way." "Oh, you were at rehearsal? Oh, it's fine then." Really? Okay, thank you. But as far as the person, I've never heard that out of him. We just hear stuff through a headset. I think he was calmer once everything ended with the show. In the moment, a lot of guys, the producer, the director, are screaming and yelling. And
Pressure.
After the show's like, "Go in the truck." "Why'd that happen?" "Yeah, I got caught in the way." There's only so many places you can move. "All right, next time, try not to do that." "All right, I won't do it again." That pretty much was a standard line. "Yeah, I won't do it again," and walk away. But that was it. It was fun. He was he's just like anybody else. He's a hands-on owner. He's very intimidating because he's a large man. He's a big guy, and he's involved in everything. He's not an absentee owner. He was, I guess he's there a little less now with all that went on in the past year and a half, but pretty much at every show. So, but me personally, I had nothing but I can't say any negative experience I've had with dealing with Vince. He was always, anything was, you could have a conversation with him. If he was not happy with anything that we did, wasn't cursing or screaming.
Yeah. Was there ever any moments, kind of, John, when you were there, because there was some crazy on-screen stuff going on at the time? Did you ever feel like, and I asked Tom this question as well, did you ever feel like they kind of went too far sometimes with the on-screen stuff? Like the two things that come to mind, I don't know if you were here for the two of them, would be the Katie Vick thing with Triple H.
I was there when they taped it. I was there.
Let's hear about that one.
Well, I tell you what, it's when they were taping it, and I was, I said, "Go shoot stills. We want, still photo of this." And we're at a funeral home. We were in Memphis, Tennessee, I think it was. And there was a funeral in the next room. There was a wake going on in the next room while we were taping this. So that already had everybody like, this is, I don't really know what this, we're all already like, oh boy. And it honestly seemed like while it was a lot of haha that was going on. So watching the taping of it didn't seem as bad as when you watched it on the screen, because I was ringside. And when they played it, it was, because the way they edited, whatever they did with it in post-production before they put it up on the screen, it was, I looked across the other photographer and I was like, oh my God. And I just looked around and the entire crowd, I think it was on an outside, and I just turned my head and, oh my goodness, it was just the horrified look of the fans. But again, during the taping of it, it seemed more haha than what they turned it into. I mean, Triple H doing the head tilt to Kane to Max was kind of funny. But then after the fact, like, who came up with this and how was it ever allowed to be put on air? And poor Kane, Glenn, that was a good, he was a good soldier all his years with that company, and to put him through that. And the other one, crossing the line, I think when Vince spit the holy water in the church before his match with Shawn Michaels and God. And I sent one of the freelancers. We were in Milwaukee. I don't even know how they got the church. I don't know how they got the church to allow any of this. One of my guys comes back and pretty religious Catholic, and he said, "I'm going to hell." I said, "What happened?" He goes, "He did the Triple H spit with the holy water." I said, "He did what?" He goes, I don't think they were too high. And a few other TV guys like, yeah, I think we're all going to hell for this one.
The other one that came to mind for me, John, and this was it was edgy at the time, but then coinciding with the London bombings, remember the Mohammed Hassan thing, and then it was the timing of the show as well. What was the environment like at that time? Because I know there was a lot of hot water over that one.
Well, I think I was off the week they did the whole, didn't they carry him away or something? I don't say they killed him, but it was like
choked him. Oh, with Muhammad, he got tombstone through the through the stage at a pay-per-view.
Druids carry him out. It was some crazy stuff. You know what? I think I was actually off that week, but when they first started filming promos with him, we were at a small little airport in Connecticut, and the whole basis of his character was, why do people pick on me? I'm not just because I'm Arab. Why am I always being looked at? And then I guess it turned into something, way different than originally intended. I think his character was meant to be more, have a little more mercy on him. Feel bad for him, like he's getting picked on because he's of Middle Eastern descent after 9/11 in the United States, and I don't know if they switched his character around, or that was some weird. Yeah, that was a weird one, and I don't think he was a nice kid, but I don't. Some guys aren't really meant for the business. Some stuff goes on, and I don't know. I think he wanted to do something more than what they gave him. He was a nice kid. I liked him. Davari was great with him. Sean's a good guy. He's an excellent human being. So is his brother. But that whole thing was, it turned weird. I think it turned out different than it was originally intended. I think I'm not privy to writers' meetings or whatever. It just seemed like character arc kind of went in a different direction. And I pissed a lot of people off. Rightfully so, being a New Yorker,
From my understanding, the network at the time were so upset that they were threatening cancellation if the character wasn't pulled, and that's exactly what happened. But switching the timeline up just a lot, you had some experiences shooting the late Bray Wyatt, and especially as the Fiend character. Just wondering what that was like for you, given the immense cinematic presence that he had, not only as the Fiend but as the original Cape Fear style character, and just memories of him as a human being.
I didn't do a lot. I never went to FCW. We had Florida guys cover all that, so I was never in Tampa. And then one of the other staff guys was moving to Florida. He said he would move. He said he would move to Florida. He was going to cover everything. And then it's, oh hey, we're going to move moving it to Orlando and calling it NXT. He's like, well, I live in Tampa, so I was like, I guess you're driving to Orlando. So he covered all that. So I wasn't there at the beginning. I mean, my first meetings with him was Husky Harris with Nexus, and he was. I'd heard he was Mike Rotunda's son, and Mike I did a lot of international tours with. I always sat with him on the bus or on a plane ride, and I would talk. He would tell me stories. So I enjoyed talking to him. He told stories from back in the day, and being someone that grew up through that era, it was fun to hear his stories from working back in the 80s and his different characters. And a very nice guy. I mean, I feel bad for all of them. DeBow, his sister, his mom. I mean, it's just kids, JoJo. It's horrible. But as Husky Harris, when he first came, I don't really like this guy. He's kind of an attitude. He's like one of those meathead football players. It's kind of how he was. They came on one of the first tours. And he played college football, I think, at Troy University. think it was Troy, somewhere down south, maybe in Louisiana, because he would talk with one of my guys. A guy that played for the Buffalo Bills was his teammate. But this was there. Now he came back as Bray. Like, it was Husky, and then he disappeared. Went back to NXT. I didn't know anything about this Wyatt family. Like I said, I rarely ever went to Florida. And they had him start doing dark matches as the Bray Wyatt character. I'm like, wait a minute, is this the same guy? He's got the big beard now and long hair. He had the short hair. He had some more tattoos on him. And I remember hearing on headset the director at the time saying, "This kid's gonna be a star. I really like him. You know, he's got a good vibe and the whole." I'm like, this guy's out of this, kind of out of this world character. Then he disappeared. Went back to NXT, and then I forget when they made their debut as the Wyatt family, but I didn't know Eric Rowan, and I didn't know Brody. I didn't know Harper. I didn't know any of those guys. I'd never met them. When they came out, I was like, wow, and with the Shield, it's like, wow, these are a couple of solid factions. And as I got to know Bray more, I realized that he's a very, very nice, quiet, soft-spoken guy, very creative. And then when they were doing the whole Fiend, it was, hey, I think we were in Pittsburgh when he started the original. The stuff I posted online was after he got lit on fire. I didn't specify that, but that was after he was lit on fire by Randy. That was that mask. The original ones, I think we started in Pittsburgh, and Tom Savini, that big special effects guy, Jason Baker worked for him. And I'd met them both in Pittsburgh, and they'd done some other stuff with some talent. He's like, he's going to be this. And they started putting the mold, and I'm taking pictures. I'm running out. I'm coming back. I'm like, Bray's like, yeah, dude, this is going to be some crazy, crazy shit. And, when they made the whole thing, it was like, how do you breathe in that? And the outfit, I guess, I was just, I don't know, just feel like they kind of went sideways with him also with that character. And, during COVID with all the matches, and Braun was feuding with him. Braun was part of the Wyatt family, and he went away. Was whatever issues he had, health, mental. He came back and did the stuff with LA Knight, and then, just from what I read, I don't follow a lot. Just he was supposed to be coming back, and then somebody texted me that I used to work with, and, dude, is this true about Bray? I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And they go online. I'm like, oh my god. And at first, I thought he was a little older than 36. Not that he was old, obviously. He's a lot younger than me, but I thought he was a little older than 36 years old. So, I mean, any age is too young. I'm 56 now, but I met the kids. JoJo, I know, obviously worked with her. I met his children from his first marriage at a WrestleMania, and they're cute little girls. And there's he's running around with them, tattoos, with being a soft, cuddly daddy. That's the way he was. And he was into a lot of stuff, and you could have conversation with him just about anything. He's like, my kids are teenagers, and we'd have those conversations about how they would aggravate me, get phone calls on the road. But just sad. I know I texted with a few of the guys from work, and everybody was just broken up about it because he was a sweetheart of a guy. He really was. And I would talk with Mike about it. I was like, where does he come up with this stuff? He said, from when he was a kid, he was very creative and would do a lot of stuff that was out there that you say, as a child, but he said he always had a very creative mind, making up all these characters as a kid. So brain was always working like that, I guess. But yeah, it is a horrible tragedy. So, any of those guys, Harper was brutal also. Such a nice guy, Brody.
To try lighten up the mood a little bit, I had a question there about, you met some amount of celebrities over the years in WWE, and then they had the whole celebrity guest hosts and different people coming through the doors. Is there any particular memories you have of anyone in particular that was fun to be around, or any funny stories?
Bob Barker was great. Probably one of the best. When they did The Price is Right, the stuff he did with Chris. I was watching the clips again last week. It was hysterical. Who else? Hugh Jackman was good because he a legitimate wrestling fan. And my take on a true wrestling fan is who your favorite wrestler was. And his favorite wrestler was King Kong Bundy. That's what he told us. Most people say, well, I like the Ultimate, our age range. I like the Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan. You say King Kong Bundy was your favorite? You're a real wrestling fan to me. A very nice guy. He took pictures with everybody. He was, all the girls, of course, were going gaga as he's standing there. I mean, I think he came on twice. He did the whole thing with Zack Ryder when he punched out Dolph, and came back one other time. He got involved, and feel like, is he gonna be able to do this as a live TV? I said, do you guys realize he does Broadway? He's not just a movie actor. The guy's like, he does it all. He's gonna be able to get in the ring to open a show on live, and knock it out of the park. And people are like, well, I'm like, it's not a movie like Ben Stiller. And I'm sorry, what's it? Jeremy Piven, and I think they practiced for like 30 minutes of him jumping off the top rope so he could get horizontal so John could catch him. I'm surprised he didn't kill John because he couldn't figure it out. He just kept jumping off straight. And John's like, turn your body. And then he finally got it, and he got it live. It was, Monday Night Raw, and he did it. And I was like, you guys got to get this picture. So, of course, I'm looking right across, and as soon as he gets up to the top, the shutter's down, and I got a good shot of him flying through the air as John's, about to catch him. And then Ken Jeong was there, and they threw him, and he hit his head on the floor. He threw him too far. Stuff like that is but anyone that comes on, they want to jump up on the second rope and hold their arms up like they're the champ, and they want to run back and forth off the ropes, and then they're amazed at how hard the ring is because everybody thinks it's cushion. I have to tell them it's like 2x10s and a piece of mat that's like maybe an inch thick. And the older guys say the old rings were like cement. When they change them to these ones that are a little more bouncy, way more give. But, it's physics. You can't keep dropping on your back over and over again and not have it hurt over time. But the celebrities were, some were kind of, Al Sharpton was ridiculous. He just kind of was there. I don't even know. Jonah Hill, he was just an ass to everybody. I think Vicky Guerrero wanted to smack him in the face. I think she went like public with her disdain for him, the way he acted. But for the most, they kind of ran it dry. But some were fun. A lot of that Pat McAfee when he first came and did the stuff at NXT. Huge fan, hell of a nice guy. He brought a bunch of the players with him as his backup. And again, they get in the ring, they want to run the ropes, and but Pat doing moonsaults, and like, wow, this guy's good. He's into it. He knows the big guy. He understands the business, which I think the talent have a lot of respect for when somebody comes in. Snoop is Snoop. Some rappers always smells weed everywhere. Like, how the hell are you not getting arrested? I don't understand. My meeting Mike Tyson was cool. Like, that's a bad dude. But he's a big wrestling fan. I tell you where I work now, where I talk to us, you have no idea the amount of people that are celebrities, professional athletes, you name it. They are huge wrestling fans. There's just, they're not ashamed to admit it. They say they love it. They had the greatest time going on the show and being part of it. And musicians, Adam Jones from Tool is at almost every show. It was in LA. Huge fan. A nice guy too. Really, really nice guy.
Yeah, it really crosses demographic lines. Another name that was in the news, especially this week, is CM Punk. Wanted to know your impressions of being around him, working with him backstage, in terms of the alleged proclivity to not play nice with others. And were you there, or I know you were there, but did you have any involvement in that very infamous pipe bomb promo that set off that summer of Punk?
Yeah, no, I was. I'm the one who took the pictures of him sitting cross Indian cross legs, crisscross Indians, whatever they say. It was, dude. Like, he's gonna talk, and then I ran up at the bottom of the stage, taking pictures, and I'm like, oh my god, this guy's, Again, nobody said anything. As far as I was concerned, he was going off, but Vince could always turn off the mic. But you're not thinking in that moment, like, this guy's really laying it in there. And I said, as soon as I said to the photo editor, send whoever the studio guy is back by Gorilla, because if something's going to happen, we got to have pictures of this. And he does the promo, and I'm like, kind of chuckling behind the camera at some of the stuff he's saying and going, man, he's really going off. And we were leaving for Australia. We were leaving for a tour of Australia and New Zealand the next day. And I'm like, is he leaving? Is he coming on this tour? I don't even know what the hell's going on. And so my photographer in the back after I said, well, dude, what happened? He goes, he just came back and started asking everybody for money for the fine he was going to get. And then as like time goes on, you realize it was a worked shoot promo, because obviously they just could at any point cut the mic on him. And he basically did the same thing every night on tour, and then they turned the mic off on him as a gimmick. He'd start ranting, and they would turn off his mic, and he would start yelling at the production guys, and everybody got a laugh out of it. Yeah, I mean, from what I was told going into that Chicago pay-per-view, he was still on the fence if he was going to resign or not. So nobody knew what was going on. And I don't know if he was having dinner with Vince in Chicago the night before the show, and they were still trying to iron things out. And, and again, I think they ruined that also. I thought what he did was funny. He was going around Chicago taking pictures with the title, that he took it and ran. It's in his refrigerator, and then a week or two later, he's back. It didn't really make any sense to me. They give just hand John a title, and now, I think they were. I don't know what if they've had any clue what they wanted to do. I mean, it just seemed odd to me. As if I was a fan at home going, I don't get it, or a smart mark or whatever. You're the average fan. You're like, I don't really understand what's going on. But he was a cool guy. He had his moments. There were times he was a little standoffish with us. He's a huge hockey fan, huge Blackhawks fan, so we always talk hockey with him. Slap shot lines would always come out between us. We'd say something, he would say something back. I know after Paul Newman died, he did Dunlop number 8 on the wrist tape, and we got one of the guys took it from when he cut it off. He said, we haven't. We taped it on our road case. It's probably still there. He gave it to one of my guys, and they taped it up on the road case. So like the week after, I'm like, what the hell is that? Yeah, I was off. And like, yeah, didn't you? He gave it to us. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And toward the end, that Royal Rumble was, the last Royal Rumble, and then he left the next day. He was in the corner, and I guess he was sitting there for a while, and it was like, what's going on? I'm like, I'm just taking pictures. I'm not getting involved in anything. And the next day, like, oh, we're going to destroy your photo studio. He's going to get beat up by Kane, maybe. I don't even know what it was. I'm like, dude, you're not going to smash all my equipment. Then what am I supposed to do? It's like thousands of dollars worth of camera equipment, photo equipment. They just never seem to care for a show. Blow up a car, destroy, $10,000 in photo equipment. An hour later, it's like, yeah, no, they changed everything. He left. I'm like, what do you mean he left? Well, yeah, he left. He went home. Like, what do you mean he went home? It was just like with Jerry Lawler when they fired the cat. And that was, I actually saw him leaving the parking lot. I thought they were going to the gym or whatever. And like, oh, King left. I'm like, what do you mean? Well, they told Cat she was getting let go, and he quit. I'm like, oh, I just saw them drive out. I thought they were going to the gym. Like, but no, he quit when they got fired her. I'm like, okay, all right. But Punk, I always got along with him. I saw how he was with people. He was, even when he was a babyface, he was a heel to fans. He's just, I don't think he created the problems at WWE like it appears. I'm not privy to what goes on at AEW, but that's that kind of, like you see, that kind of stuff is not, you don't get away with that at WWE because Vince is the ultimate, well, maybe Triple H now. I don't really know what the structure is, but even when the WCW guys came over, Dean Malenko, all them, they all said the same thing. Nobody's getting away with that stuff here because Vince would never allow it. And they were getting away with it in WCW, repeatedly, and that's why they went down the drain. Mm-hmm. You can't let the inmates run the asylum. It sounds like that kind of goes on at AEW.
Very WCW like, I think.
Yeah, I don't like the Young Bucks. I don't know. I never really watched a lot of other wrestling. I just heard their names. I never watched them. I guess they were a big deal with the tag teams. I don't know. Kenny Omega's very talented. I've seen some of his matches. Would he be good in WWE? People speculate. Yeah, I think he would if they let him just kind of do his thing and don't control him. There's too many of the WWE way that stifles some of these guys. I mean, Claudio was, to me, heavyweight champ material. Very talented in the ring, and so he had an accent. Really, we never had any foreign champions in the history of the business.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, but Punk was. I liked him. I got a kick out of some of the stuff he did. That's just how my personality. But I somehow just kind of shake my head. But other stuff was kind of comical.
I seen on your Facebook page. I was kind of looking through your posts to kind of see what some of your memories are from working in the business, and I noticed that you have a story about taking shots with the Undertaker in Milan. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. So that was my goodness. That was 2004. Yeah, we were doing a tour through Italy and Germany, and it was right before John was going to explode. He won the U.S. title at WrestleMania in March, and they had sent him to do media in Italy to start up before the tour. So we all we're on a private plane. We get there the night before, and he says, "Oh, there's this bar. They're setting everything up for us. I took care of they're taking care of everything. Just go to this bar. Everything's on the house. Blah blah blah." We go, a bunch of talent, some crew guys, and they're serving champagne. I'm like, I'm not going to drink champagne all night. What? So I go get a beer, and it was like $15. I'm like, yeah, I'm out of here. So I think I jumped in a cab with one of the talent. They thought it was odd too, like champagne. Nobody wants to drink that all night. So I'm walking back through the lobby, and there was a few office guys sitting with Taker. And, hey, John, sit down and have a beer with us. And you sit with Mark and tell some great stories. The guys Vince made him work with, like Giant Gonzalez and some of these other guys that couldn't work. And then the guys from the office are like, "Oh yeah, we got to go to bed." And I'm about to get up, and he just goes like this, with his two fingers up. And I said, "Does that mean I have to stay?" He goes, "Yes." 2 pints, 2 shots of Jack. I don't even know how long. I didn't even think we spoke that much to each other. He just kept. That was another shot and another pint, and I didn't even know what planet I was on. And thankfully, all the boys were starting to file back in, and I, took off before he could get me another one. And we were leaving to do a shoot with John and Tori Wilson around Milan. And I woke up. And you were there, you live there. And to me, the hotels, the clock is under the bottom of the television. There's no actual clock in the room. And I looked at it, and I thought it said some other time. I looked at my watch, which of course I didn't change, so it said 5 o'clock or whatever it was. I'm like, I could still sleep a little longer. I'm like, wait a minute, it's really bright outside. And it says 10:50. Then I look closely at the television, jump up, grab my camera bag. I'm in a mess. The crew guy's like, "Oh, we were missing somebody." I'm like, "Oh my god, I feel like I'm death." So they're all laughing. And I think later that night, we go through the show. I just finally start feeling better, and I go up to him at the bar. And now everybody's at the bar. We think we were driving to the next town the next morning. I said, "Oh, thank you for the drinks, but I almost didn't make it." He goes, "Oh man, I was pretty hurting myself." But he got a few people over the years. If you've read any of the comments on Instagram, a few guys, they still can't go anywhere near Jack Daniels after what he did to them. So, he got us a few times. There were a few international tours. The tour after Eddie Guerrero died, toward the end, we had a table of crew and there was a table of talent, and they started doing shots, and we're like, we just keep quiet. Maybe they won't know we're right next to them, and we'll be safe. Sure enough, here comes the tray. This is from the guys. We turn around, they're like, we go, here we go. A couple of guys just got up and left. They're like, there's no way I'm going through this. And they just left. Went to their rooms. We had to call one guy. I had to call his room. He never showed up to the bus. You go, hey, anybody see you? I'm not going to say his name. And they go, I don't know. So I go back into the front desk. Hey, I'm on my way down. He comes running. He's all disheveled.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, thank you so much. Then I think he was sick. We flew back to England. We were taping. We were. I think we were man. We were always in Manchester in November, and London in April, and then we did Liverpool like once or twice. We did Glasgow. They moved around a little for November, but November for years was Manchester. It was London, Manchester every year in the middle of that 2-week tour. Then they were
And usually
actually.
Belfast or Dublin in there as well.
I tell you, I love the shows there. I love doing that. That's the thing I miss the most is those tours. They were a lot of fun. The fans over in Dublin, England, Italy was really hot for a while. The crowds were really into it. Germany was weird, very quiet. There was a lot of quiet side. But I mean, I think the first show.
Were you there, John? John, were you there in 2004 in Ireland? They've done a big summer stadium tour where Steve Austin was a special guest referee. He was with JBL, John Cena, Kurt Angle, with Steve Austin. It was in Dublin, Ireland, 2004. There was 18,000 people there. You got any memories of that?
No, I would have remembered that. I was not at that one. I mean, I was there for the volcano tour when we got stuck in Belfast when the volcano erupted.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that was. Boy, I tell you, what we did to get to the next towns to put on a show. So the cities in France, I can't remember. But somebody had said, Charles Robinson had said, because he did the first half of the tour and he left after we did TV in London and we were going on our way. And he goes, "You guys aren't getting home." So he told me, he goes, "A volcano erupted." I said, "Well, what the hell does that have to do with anything? It's in Iceland." Next thing you know, 2 days later, we're on buses everywhere trying to get from place to place. But I forget where we were in France. And we had to cut the show short. And we were flying in the morning to one other city. All of a sudden, there were issues with the plane, and they had to call the buses back. And I think we drove like 7 hours to the next town. We get probably 30, 40 minutes outside. We pull over, and they have a Mercedes van and a sedan, and they take Chavo and Evan, referee and a trainer, and a producer. It might have been Dean Malenko. I'm not sure. They all go ahead. So they were going to beat us, and they put on a 30-minute match because they had to wait till we got there, and they entertained the two guys, Chavo and Evan, entertained that crowd for 30 minutes, and we're all running in, and the town's trying to get dressed, and I'm running to the ring, and they announced they had to end the show early because we had to catch a ferry across because we were going to be in Belfast, which we were supposed to fly. So now they're buying sheets, blankets, pillows. We drive, we get to this ferry, we go across, drive across England, take the next ferry, and get to Belfast probably an hour before the show. We were doing a double shot, and that's how we were ending the tour. And people in the hotel said, "Well, we don't need the room, so you guys just stay as long as you need." And then it was like, we went golfing. We had a six-some because nobody was at the golf course. It was John Cena, me, Miz, Ted DiBiase, Hornswoggle, and one of the crew guys. So Miz and I played together because we were both lefties. Ted played with the crew guy, and John played with Swoggle. So we just mixed up the guys that could golf and the guys that really couldn't. I golf, but I'm not any good. We're like, "Well, there's nobody around. Let's just play all six of us together." And the guy from the crew, we swung 8 or 9 times, never hit the ball. Don't ask me why I didn't take video on my camera, but I was taking pictures and the ball never moved. Playing a few dollars a hole, and we're like a 5-hole push, and the guy that can't hit the ball thinks like a 20-foot putt to take the 5 holes. Miz went absolutely apeshit, screaming and yelling on the green. "You can't even hit a ball." Hornswoggle had to hit out of the sand trap. He couldn't climb out. We left him there, and he's like sticking the golf club up so we can pull him out. We had a lot of fun. They caught us after the 9th hole and kicked us out. They didn't kick us out. They said, "You can't do this anymore." And we looked at it and said, "Nah, we've had enough." And we got in a hotel shuttle and went back. We had a bowling tournament one night. That was fun. And we played miniature golf. We had a big mini golf tournament one other day. And every day it's like Mike Rotunda was the agent for that one. He started like, "Don't go too far. There's a plane waiting for us in Edinburgh. And when we get the call, we're out of here. I put on BBC. The airspace is closed for another 12 hours. All right, let's go to the bar. And we knew we weren't going anywhere. Then it's, all right, we're leaving. I get an email. Make sure everybody's dressed up. Ask John to put a suit on because we're going to have a camera crew waiting when we landed in Hartford. So I told John, he's like, he goes, trooper he is. He puts the suit on. People will perturbed. There's going to be a camera crew waiting after 3 more days on the road and all that other nonsense. But it was weird, man. I was like, I don't think we're ever getting home. That's how I felt. It's like I'll be staying in this Hilton hotel in Belfast forever. Just look out the window. It's the same scene every day. It was. Oh, we made fun. As fun as we could have, we did. They produced a segment for Raw where Sheamus beat the hell out of a bunch of local guys, and Fit was the other agent. Fit was there because then his dad came. And I'd never met his father before, and I didn't know he was a promoter in Belfast, and they had a promotion and everything, and he was there helping everybody, and which was cool. It was nice to meet his dad. A really nice guy. But yeah, it was a wild one, man. That was crazy.
Wanted to, John, get your thoughts on Triple H, your experiences with him over the time frame that you were there, and his ascension to such a powerful position in the company in this day and age.
You know what? When I first started, he always worked me over. He always throw a jab in somewhere where he could at me. If he overheard a conversation, he'd throw something out there. Always friendly. Always friendly to me, to all of us. Much easier person to speak to than Vince if you had to talk to him with something. So when he was running the shows, like, hey man, this is going on. I need to walk right up and start talking to him. Great mind for the business, as far as I'm concerned. Watching him talk to the talent and interact with everyone, they love him. From what I saw, they love him at NXT when he was running everything down there. Anyone that came through NXT always spoke highly of him. Like I say, always good with me and always friendly, So, as far as what people say, how he got there, it's not like he doesn't know what he's doing. It's not like they put somebody in the spot because of who he married and he has no clue. He's very knowledgeable. He's a good human being as well. And, he had that health scare, which was, from what I was told, was pretty serious. He's back. I hope everything works out for him with this whole merger / purchase or whatever. I mean, sounds like some heads are going to roll soon in the office, but you hate to see that. As corporate America, unfortunately, is profits over people.
He made an interesting comment recently to, I believe it was a financial magazine, or he was quoted in a financial magazine as stating that if Shane McMahon were brought into the company under the merger with UFC, that and had any position of authority in said organization, that he would happily step away to pursue other opportunities. Did you notice anything in particular about his relationship with Shane?
We seem to get along well enough to me. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure from back in the day, there might have been some tension as far as Shane with his sister dating a wrestler. But from whatever I've seen with the two of them, I mean, the last few years, Shane was never really around. Whatever happened with him and Vince when he left, I was probably like 10 years ago, whatever it was. And then the surprising return heading into his WrestleMania match with Undertaker, he was gone for what, 6 or 7 years, I guess.
Yeah.
But from what I saw between them, they seemed fine to me. I mean, maybe there was some underlying tension. I don't know. I couldn't tell being around them. I don't think they were really together doing anything match-wise or anything where there would be any kind of disagreements amongst each other. I mean, I wasn't around with that whole Royal Rumble thing last year. I was out running around the stadium. I didn't know anything until afterwards, and people started talking about what happened. Like, I don't know. I'm wandering around the crowd, shooting fans, and doing kinds of all other stuff, backstage, whatever. So, when that story came out, I was like, "What happened? Did what?" But
John, were you there the night that Brock? Remember when Brock came back for the second time, and he was kind of doing all this UFC style, and he was going in heavy on John Cena one night, and then it was the Randy Orton SummerSlam, where I think he may have broken his nose, I don't know, but he was hitting it with some stiff shots, and apparently there was an altercation then between Brock and Chris Jericho at one point backstage. I think Chris thought that he was going too hard on him. Did you feel that maybe that Brock was going too hard on some of these guys?
It was that SummerSlam was that's actually the one where we sent the photographer in to cover Randy getting stitched up, and he went off on her.
Okay.
So. I was shooting ringside, and I'm like, damn, when he busted him open, I was like, well, that's odd, because like those guys they're from OVW together, like they have a good relationship. And to me, it seemed odd that Brock would work Randy stiff. They've known each other forever. They came up together, and Brock, and all I've seen with him, didn't take liberties with anybody except the time he punched Braun in the face because Braun need him, and he gave him a receipt, told him to calm down. But nobody really has any issues working with him from what I ever have seen. I mean, he ragdolled AJ for that one match, but then AJ had to come back. And at the beginning of the match, I'm like, what's the point of this match? If Brock's what are you doing with AJ? He's like a top guy. And then they do the comeback, and like, oh, okay, here we go. And Finn was the same thing. And, Brock always say he likes working with the smaller guys. They give him likes a match with the guys that are a little smaller. Randy, that one was kind of, and then after the fact, I heard that Chris didn't know that was all part of the match, and he thought he worked Randy stiff, and he went after him. And then, Chris is a good dude. He stands up for the guys. I guess he thought Brock was taking liberties. Did not know that was part of that was part of their match, was he was going to do that. But I think he said he could safely hit him and cut him open. And so he ended up with a concussion, and I don't know how many staples in his head. But Brock is. I always got along well with Brock. I've known him since he first came up and worked with him, and I was never afraid to him. Say, hey man, we got to take pictures, and he would give me shit, and I'm like, it's got to get done. And then he would eventually come in. I was like, wow, you talk to him like that? I'm like, I've known him since he first came up from OVW. He's when they see you around all the time, and you're on tour, and you're on a bus, and you're on a plane, they have respect for us because they know we're working hard. And obviously we're not in the ring taking bumps, but they see us running around the ring, and especially on the international tours, and we're sending pictures back in the middle of the night. And I was going, well, I was like, if I needed him to do something, even like a personal thing as a favor, Brock would always do it. As a security guy, I'm good. I've known forever. Some people are just afraid of him because he is a scary dude and he doesn't really like being around people. But when he's with the boys, he hangs out with everybody. He sits and shoots the shit and everything. He doesn't keep to himself. He'll have conversations with everybody. He's not one of those guys like that. I don't know if that's any kind of reputation people give him, but I know from what I've seen, he's not like that at all.
John, out of all the WrestleManias that you were a part of, do you have a favorite moment, or if not a favorite, a memory that jumps out to you that caused you, given the high stress environment of the WrestleMania spectacle, that caused you some consternation? Either or is good.
Well, I tell you, WrestleMania 17 was my first WrestleMania working for the company, and to this day, top to bottom, that was the best one I've ever witnessed. The TLC match, the Vince. I mean, they'll never run the picture, but Linda kicking Vince in the balls after she stands up. I mean, I got a great shot of that. Never be used anywhere, unfortunately. But it's like there's moments that you want to capture, and they just Vince allowed himself to get physically abused, and that's why the boys respect him, because he was willing to take that punishment for the good of the show. Bad, I can't see anything bad. I think we had some moments with technical issues with our equipment that lights stopped working or camera crapped out. And now you're like, oh my god, now what do I do? And nothing to the I think they got on my case. They thought Batista was supposed to do more when he won the title, but they wanted something where he was screaming like a maniac that he won, but he was just exhausted. Like he told us, I'm expending every amount of energy I have, and that's how I'm going to be at the end of the match. And that's what we captured. And it's like, well, why didn't you have this? Like, he didn't do that. Like, I don't understand. Did you guys watch the show? And that's what used to aggravate us the most, the people in the office. Why didn't you get that? I saw it on TV. The cameraman was standing there. It's a TV show. Brock Brock short landing the shooting star. Now I was still shooting film, so you didn't get the initial wow, did I you got it or not. I look at the back of the camera. I couldn't tell what I got. I just turned on a headset because it was tough to tell what happened. Just, oh my God, is he okay? And then he's stumbling around and process the film. Everything goes back to Stanford. And they're like, oh my God, you got to see this shot. You got his face hitting the mat. It looks like his eyes are bulging out of his head. And so when I looked at it, I was like, holy cow, man, that's, more luck. You're taking a shot. He's going through the air. It's not now without it's available light and you put your finger down and shoot 25 frames in a row. With the strobes, you're taking one and you're waiting 3 seconds. And they wanted to run in the magazine down the road, and they said, could you ask him? We don't want to run the image unless he's okay with it. So could you ask him? So I said, hey, do you mind? I got the shot of you hitting the mat. He's like, can you make a copy of that for me? Yeah, I don't care if you use it. Can you make a print and have it sent to my house? So tell the office, yeah, dude, he's cool with it. Make it 11 by 14. We'll get his address from town relations, and he wants a copy. Oh, really? Oh, my God, thank you so much. Tell him thank you. It was anything after that. I tell you what, the Shawn Michaels super kicking Ric Flair is one of my favorites. I have no clue. Shawn goes, I'm sorry, I love you, because I was so focused in on the spot where he was going to kick him. And I'm not looking at him as Rick is doing this, and I'm just I got the foot to the face, and Charles was always great with the expressions in the background. Charles Robinson is classic. If you look through any photo that he referees, he's the best. Trying to think there's a few. I'm trying to think a few. Look, Hogan Rock at WrestleMania 18, just as an experience, not even photographing. When Hogan's music hit, that's the loudest I heard a crowd in my 21 plus years when he came out.
I was there.
It was ridiculous, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you sit there in the center.
Should have been the main event. Yeah,
the main event. I felt bad, for Chris and them. That was the girls were right. Girls were the buffer match in between, weren't they?
Mm-hmm.
So now you're Trish and Jazz, and she's the hometown girl after two of the biggest names in the history of the business put on an epic match. And they used to have the parties after WrestleMania, and they would have a TV when the show would be on again. Town would watch, and so I went to Rock. I said, man, I thought you were going heel. He goes, if they wanted me to, I would have. He was playing. He knew they fans wanted Hogan, so he played up the heel aspect of it, and then they turned it around so people weren't mad when Hogan lost. And then at Montreal the next night, what was that, 20, 25 minutes standing ovation? It was crazy. It was wow. The Canadian fans are awesome. I always like going up to Canada. Didn't like dealing with customs and immigration, but as far as the crowds and the shows, always London, Ontario, I always like going in that little arena. As a hockey fan, it's fun to walk around and look at all the old photos of the guys that went through that to the NHL. But big hockey fan, big wrestling fans. Canada's a great wrestling country. When Shawn did that whole thing with Brett and hit his music and he didn't come out.
Oh yeah.
Still heat to this day.
I know. Brett's a good guy. I did some of those first photographs when he came back, and very nice guy. Talked to him a little bit here and there. I didn't really want to bother him. When Piper had come back, I thought it was awesome because he had a lot of respect for the photographers. We did the photos. I think they use them all the time still. He's like holding his thumbs in his belt with the jacket partly open. And he said, the guys today don't respect photography like we did. I said, well, it's all TV now. There was the TV back then. You got known by the magazines and your photos in the magazines. That's the way it was back in the day. And I said, could you please tell all the young talent that? And we said that to him one day because he said it to us another time, that the respect that his generation had for the photographers, because the photography put them over. I was like, could you please have a seminar with everybody on the roster right now and tell them, please explain that to them. We could use the help because, I don't want to take pictures. Oh, I got a segment coming up. It's a TV show. Some guys involved in 2 backstage segments and a 3-segment match. They don't have the time to come in, even if it's 5 minutes. But some guys are always there. The New Day, those 3 guys are solid as they come. Human beings. They all reached out to me after I got let go. They all text me. They all sent me a text, which I thought was really nice. I text with E every now and again, because he's such a good dude. He's such a genuine human being. Hate to see what happened to him. He's probably not coming back from what they say. But a tough break. Feel bad for the kid Rich. It was just an accident.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we're gone well over our hour.
Yeah, see that.
We have some points that we're not going to touch on tonight, and we'll hopefully be able to get you back on for another show at some point.
For sure. I love it. It's fun stuff. I enjoy it. It's fun bring back more things pop into my head as you guys, ask me questions.
I suppose, like, in closing, kind of what led to your release, I suppose, or ending with the company? How did that all come about?
I think there was some changes at the top, and I think some people didn't want me there anymore. I think for the amount of personal sacrifice I made for this company and all the people I brought in. I mean, other than 2 guys, I brought every photographer, trained them. I had at least a half a dozen text me thanking me for being a good mentor, showing them the way. How to be ringside, how to work with the cameraman, how to get along with the crew, how to get along with this company and dealing with this massive machine of 200 people every week. You see the same 200 people. Sometimes people, my feeling with WWE is they like you until they don't. And somebody decided it was, Johnny Photo's run has just come to an end. Like Zack Ryder, it was a decent run.
Did you feel let down by the whole situation?
Yeah, without a doubt. I don't miss getting on a plane every week, to be honest with you. In fact, I said to my wife, I don't even feel like I was, because it's been a year, 15 months now. I didn't feel like I was on a plane every week for over 20 years. Because I've been on 2 flights in the past 15 months, and I don't miss my Sunday revolving around what time I have to leave to get to the airport, getting no sleep, and dealing with flying home and traffic. And I miss everybody on the road. I miss the crew. We were a big dysfunctional family is how I described it. And the talent. The talent were all friendly. You get to know their families. That's what I say with Bray. You meet the kids. You meet their spouses. You see like Kofi's kids are getting older from when they were little babies. Now the older guy's probably 10 or 11. The little guy's 6 or 7. And you would see somebody, all the guys on the crew. Well, my kids would come and they were little. My son was a baby and then he's a teenager. I was like, that was the little guy crawling around at 13 months old backstage in Bridgeport. And he's in my arms and Vince sees me. He's like, oh my God, what a beautiful baby. Grandpa Vince comes out where I'm with my son. I'm like, I got a few months and Vince will be fine until I get yelled at again. Maybe to remember my child. But I wasn't looking to leave. Sometimes things get frustrating with the workplace, but I had no intention of leaving. It is what it is. What are you going to do? It happens to everybody at one point or another. It's nice to get them before they get you, but it rarely happens at WWE.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. I reached out to a few other organizations. They got their people. So my time in sports entertainment might be over and on to something else. But if not, I had a hell of a ride, man. You can. I walked through the Red Square. I stood at the base of the pyramids. God, I've been to London. I can't even tell you how many times, man. It's, everywhere. Canada, Australia. Yeah, I loved it. It was great.
Japan.
Yes. Yeah. Japan, Yokohama. Tokyo, Yokohama. It was just Tokyo and Yokohama. Shanghai. I go down the list for probably another 20 minutes. Yeah, all over the UK. I love going over the United Kingdom. It was great. Fans are awesome. The people there are great. Australia, the people there are unbelievable. So I think is that the Sydney Harbour Bridge in the back? If you can see that. That's when we did the climb and Punk went over the cable and sat on the other side.
All right.
that was the summer of punk. We went from the pipe bomb to Australia. And I can tell you some other stories the next time we're on, because that tour ended on comedy, like of the highest level.
Yes, let's do that next time. And John, look, we can only thank you again for your time today. And
Oh, my pleasure. My
we might
pleasure.
catch up again soon, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. You guys take care and be safe out there. All right.
Yeah,
Thanks, John.
All right. Take care. Go on. Have a good night, guys. Go to bed. It's late over there.
You too.